Well, hello and good evening, everyone. This is Sevilla I Love, and welcome to my channel. This is where we are getting back to living and loving life again after a major life altering loss, such as being widowed. We have so much good stuff for you today because I have people writing into me quite often asking for advice. And I'm not always able to answer the questions, but what I love to do is save them up to kind of get a feel for what people are wanting to hear and what struggles people are facing. And I kind of take the ones that are the most common and I'll pick one of those. And that's what I'm doing tonight. So we're going to be addressing some issues that viewers have written in about and asked my advice on. So I'm going to share that with you because often these questions are shareable to so many people and they give their permission for me to be able to share so other people can benefit as well because they know that they're not alone and you are not alone either in the struggles you're facing. Now, the topic tonight is dating a widow. And I want the widows to listen to this as well, because there's always two sides of the fence. And for the ones dating the widows, often have a lot of struggles that they don't tell their widow or widower about. And on the other side of the fence, there's the people who have been widowed that are afraid to tell the person they're dating about, or how that they think maybe things could be different. And so these types of Q&As give you good insight into the other party. So this is for everyone. Now, my first question tonight is, have you subscribed to this channel? Because if you haven't, please take a minute to do that because there's lots of good content on here. But my viewer writes in and he says, please, I need advice. I've been talking with a woman who lost her husband about 2 years ago. I'm the first guy that she has been talking to since his death. I've never dated a widow before, and I don't know if I should ask her about him and how they met. I mean, I don't want to be the guy that hurts her by saying the wrong thing. Also, I'm a coworker with a relative of hers, and she doesn't want her family to know that she's starting to date. And me and her husband sound like we had all the same hobbies and we had mutual friends in common as well. And my other concerns is that her husband and I have the same make and model and color of a vehicle that I drive. And do I want to know, do I pick her up in that car on our first date? I don't want to freak her out. Any advice would be great. Okay, so what I want to say to this is a multi-layered issue for this fella, and we'll just call him Charlie. So Charlie is facing a lot of different barriers, but ones he's not going to know the answer to until he gets in with this woman. But he is so kind and wants to be able to address her delicately because he doesn't want to hurt her. And I applaud that. That's wonderful. There's a couple of things to consider in this situation. Let's just address the car thing first. That car is going to be a trigger. Yes, it's going to be a trigger when you pick her up. So what I would advise then is when you text her about the date, say, I'm going to be showing up in a F-150 and it's black. So I'll come to the door and pick you up. I just want you to know what kind of car to look for. So that way she's warned. Okay, so she has a chance to prepare for that trigger because it is going to be a trigger. But listen, there are 1,000,001 triggers for a widow. And each of those, the widower has to navigate on their own. And it's not something that you can save them from. They have to go through it and live through it. And you can't change who you are, what you have, or what you do because it might trigger someone else. Now, I also hear that you have a lot of similarities to her late husband. And what I want to say about that is we all have a type. Now, if you like blondes, you're still going to like blondes after your spouse dies, most likely. Right? If you like a sporty kind of guy, you're going to like a sporty kind of guy after your husband passes. And will these things remind her of him? Yes, they will. But I know for myself, I could have easily fallen in love with a man that had similar hobbies and lifestyle to my late husband and been able to love him for who he was, separate from my late husband. But yes, it's going to be a trigger. And so being able to go on a date with someone, you want to know, do I talk about the late husband? Do I bring it up? Do I let her bring it up? How do I handle that? So what I would recommend is don't bring it up, because she's actually in this position now. If it's been a couple of years out, she's going on a first date with you. She's trying really hard to start over. She's decided that she's going to give this a chance. And so by bringing him up right away, it's not necessarily going to help her. Now, she may want to bring him up, and that's okay. Sounds like you're okay with it as well. So it's just kind of pay attention to how she is with it. Does she talk about him all the time? I mean, is the conversation on your date all about him in the past? Or does she mention, I'm a widow and this is the first time I've been out, and it's just kind of surface information, technical information, so to speak, rather than I'm having a really hard time and I'm just feeling so guilty and I can't believe I'm doing this. And those are conversations that she should be sharing for her girlfriend and not necessarily with you. Not a bad thing, but it's something to take note of. I call it gathering information. So also too, be prepared for a couple of different scenarios. One, she could be very reticent and shy and not be open to affection because maybe it's just so awkward for her to consider what it might be like to touch a new person. Now, this may not be on the first date, but if you continue to date, so watch for that. And if she's too hesitant or too reticent for too long, then that's a sign that she may not be ready. However, on the other hand, sometimes widows have been so deprived for so long, and maybe depending on how the death happened, that they have been in a desert of physical and emotional affection. And so some widows can just really come on super strong. I have a relative that was widowed in probably her 40s, and after some time had passed and she got back out there, she said that she was a merry widow because she had been in a desert state of love and affection for so long because her husband had been ill for a very long time. And so she was very excited to get back out there. And so that's the truth for some as well. And so while you might want to be treating her with kid gloves, what I also advise is have a pair of work gloves in your back pocket just in case you want to be prepared for anything. Okay. But I think that your first intention to treat her with kindness, gentleness, and kid gloves is a great first approach. And then to just stay tuned into her signals, her signs and signals that she's giving you. And don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm going to ask if it's okay if I kiss you. It's going to ask if it's okay if I hold your hand. And until you get a feel for what your green lights really are as you get to know this person. So I think those things hopefully will be helpful for you. Just know that you can't save her from her triggers. You can't save her from her traumas. She should hopefully be spending most of her time focused on you. Now, if she does start to talk about the husband quite a bit during the conversations, you can change that conversation up to help bring her to a more present moment by saying, gosh, you really went through a lot, and I really admire your strength and your endurance through all of this. I wonder, what is it you've been doing these days to take good care of yourself? How is it that you survived all this? Tell me more about the new things that have come up in your life since this loss. What are you doing now? So I guess what I want to say is bring her into the present moment and help to reinforce the good things that have come into her world since she was widowed, because she's trying to rebuild her life. She's trying to rebuild a new identity as a single person. Now, in her first year of loss, it was all about the first time that she's been without her husband, the first Christmas, the first birthday, the first anniversary, and those are all extremely painful. But the second year is a different year of firsts. It's the first Christmas I've been alone for a whole entire year. It's the first year that I'm having another birthday alone. So it starts to really sink in the second year that you really are by yourself now. You really are in it without your partner forever and for good. And so, since your widow has had a couple of years under her belt, that's a good sign that she's gotten through those stages. Not that you ever get over the grief, she'll never get over it, but her life has grown around the grief enough that she can start to consider someone else to come in. And so, she sounds like she's a very lucky girl to be able to date you, Charlie, and that if it works out, please let me know. And if any of you have any thoughts about what Charlie might be able to do or not do in this first date, please put it in the comments below, because we want to hear your wisdoms as well. Charlie is going in head first for this great gal, and I wish them both the very best of luck. Okay, now we have another viewer who has said, please subscribe to Sevilla's channel if you haven't already and like this video. Um, but we'll call this next viewer Darnell. Okay, just give him a pseudonym. So Darnell says, hi, I started a relationship with a widow. Her husband died in a car accident a little over a year ago, and her teenage daughter told me afterwards that her mother was drinking a lot of alcohol at first, but then she changed and just really poured herself into her work and into her many children. So I met this lady on a dating site that matched us up as highly compatible. She and I would talk every day, but she lives 2 hours from me. So I go and visit her and I sleep in the living room every weekend. Now, she told me that she wanted to be really good friends first to see how I would be with her kids. Well, her kids and I have gotten really close. We all get along great. I love this woman with all my heart, and I told her that. And she said that she could love me in time, and she really likes me. And when we're alone, I can go to her and cuddle her or hold her hand, but she still has not let me into her bed to hold her until she falls asleep. And I feel she still views me as just a friend. I know she needs time, but I'm not sure what to do in this situation. I don't want her kids to get hurt or myself, but at the same time, I need more. Any advice would be appreciated. Well, Darnell, this is a tough one. You're in a difficult situation, and I know you know that because that's why you're writing to me. I just want to acknowledge that. And I can't make a hard or fast judgment because I don't know the whole story or the whole situation. There's always a million things behind any story or one person's side of the story. So going on anecdotal evidence, which meaning just at face value, you have a woman who really likes you. She enjoys your company. It sounds like you help keep her from being lonely. You're probably a nice companion to the children, and they enjoy having you around. So it's comfortable having you in the home as a companion. You may lighten the load for her a bit when you're on the weekends. You sound like a very giving person. I imagine you help out quite a bit when you're there. What I hear is someone who's doing most of the giving from this perspective. I hear that you're the one who is laying all of your heart on the line and not getting met in the middle. So widows they're often are reticent or hesitant to start over again, but that usually doesn't last that long. I mean, they may get into a relationship and then kind of back out and go, okay, well, I wasn't ready for that. And then they go and hibernate for a while longer. But this is somebody who's been engaging with you for quite some time, it sounds like. And you are of benefit to her life. But I don't hear that she's being of benefit to yours in the same kind of way. Meaning you're not getting what you want, but she's getting what she wants out of the relationship. She wants a companion and a friend. And you want someone who's going to love you for you. and be your lover and your companion and maybe even your wife. But that's not what you're getting. And you don't see any end in sight, it also sounds like. Now, you're in a position right now to ask yourself one question. Is this okay with me? And if you're writing to me now, that sounds to me like it's not okay with you on some level, and you need it to be different. So you have to ask yourself, am I willing to sit in this position as a friend without benefits, showing up at her house every weekend and helping her and being her companion and a companion to the children without getting my needs met? And this isn't just about sex. I'm not saying that it's about sex, but you just said, I just want to go and hold her. So your demands are not high. And those, you're not even getting that. So what I'm suggesting is, it sounds like to me that you are selling yourself short from a love you could or should be having with someone. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be able to be held and hold the one you love and be held by the one you love. You deserve to be able to share a bed with the woman you love, and to be able to step into the role of a partner and father figure if that's what the family decides to do. And it sounds like the children are accepting of you. So you have to decide what's okay for you. Can you live with this just like it is for the rest of your life? Because if your answer is no, then you have some more work to do. So let me ask you a question, okay? Darnell, if one was, I don't care at all, and I'm fine with the way things are, and 10 were, I absolutely can't stand this and I'm leaving tomorrow. Okay. 1 is, I can live with this for the rest of my life. It's totally okay. 10 is, I can't stand it. I'm leaving tomorrow. Where are you at on that scale of 1 to 10? Okay, just think about it for a minute. Where are you at on that scale of 1 to 10? Now, let's say you put yourself at a 7. Let's say I'm a 7 in terms of, there's a lot I can accept, but I'm just really getting to a point where I can't accept it anymore, but I'm not ready to walk out the door. So you're at that 7. So what I would want to ask you is, why aren't you at a 10 instead of a 7? Why aren't you at a 10 instead of 7? Why aren't you at the point that says, I'm going to leave? I want you to answer that question for yourself and write it down. You don't just think about it, write it down. Type it out, whatever you want to do. And the next question I want to ask you is, if you're a 7, why aren't you at a lower number? Like, I can't accept this, it's not okay. Why aren't you at, like, say, a 2 or a 3? And answer that question for yourself. And then I want to ask you a third question. What's it going to take for you to get to a 1 where you can completely accept it? And on the other hand, what's it going to take for you to get to a 10? This is just a way for you to kind of understand how close you are to really being done with this, or how accepting you truly are of this situation, and what's the right thing for you to do. Because it sounds to me like this may go on for quite some time. And if this woman hasn't been able to come to you and gotten to the point where she wants to kiss you and hold you, then it sounds to me like you're firmly in the friend zone. Even conflicted widows who struggle with, can I ever love again, still have sexual feeling. They still have desire and attraction. And the same thing for men as well. So if you haven't gotten past the friend zone, which is no physical affection, then I would say to you, you may always be in the friend zone. And if that's the case and you love these kids, then how can you start to imagine yourself being a friend to her rather than a companion, an unfair companion to you, unfair to you? Could you see the kids could you come see the kids on the weekend and take them out and go do stuff with them? Or just be a nice uncle or something like that. I know that's not what you want, but if you can't have what you want, is there something else that you're willing to accept? And if that's not okay either, then you have a choice to make. So I really wish you all the best luck in the world with this, and to remind you that you deserve to be loved, Darnell. You deserve to be loved. I'd like to hear from my other viewers. What do you think about Darnell's situation? And to put your comments below and let him know what you think. And if you have a question, you also can ask me as well. Okay, so let's go on to, we'll call her Samantha. Okay, so Samantha writes in and says she's having dreams of her deceased spouse. She said, "My husband died of cancer in February of this year. Since then, I've had dreams 2 or 3 times a week of him coming to me saying there was a mistake and he didn't die after all. Or I see him and I hug him tight, proclaiming that I'm not going to let him go. And each time I wake, I'm left with deep sadness and pain, and emotionally, physically, and mentally drained. Is this a common thing to have these dreams so often? Maybe you could make a video of it." So here we are, Elizabeth. Is that what I said? Is that what I called you, Elizabeth? No, I called you Samantha. So you're Samantha. Samantha, Elizabeth, Samantha. Um, Listen, this is very common. Now, I don't know what the common denominator is among everyone, meaning like where you're at on the bell curve, but it is very, very common to have dreams, even visitations, sometimes visualizations of the loved one that's crossed over. Now, a lot of us struggle to accept the death. And there's there's two sides of that penny. One is, it is true that they will physically never be here again. We will never share a bed with them again. We will never share a meal with them again. We will never hold their hand again. On the other side of that is the veil that stands between us and the reality of them. That we are all spiritual beings first. And that means that he still exists, that he did not die. And so if he's visiting you in a dream where you're in that, state where you're detached from the conscious brain workings of your mind, and you're able to connect more energetically, which we do oftentimes, we're in that deep dream state, that our loved ones then can reach us there and be able to connect with us. And so it sounds to me like your husband's coming to you in that state because that's when he can reach you the most. The bond that you shared is not broken or severed because the physical body dies. The only thing that is real is that which cannot be destroyed. And everything in this physical world can be destroyed. And we are energetic beings, and energy cannot be destroyed. It cannot be destroyed. All we do is transform. The energy transforms. And that's a scientific fact. You can go research it yourself. The energy thing. Now, whether you believe we're souls or not, if you don't, you might not be on the right channel. And that's okay. But if you're curious or you're searching or you're wondering or even you want to believe, hear me when I say that when your loved ones crossed over, the bond is not broken. And then when you're doing good things in this life and becoming a better person and learning how to live and love life again, that actually can help to influence their soul because you're energetically bonded to one another. Now, for those of you that are dating widows out there and you're going, "Oh, they're bonded forever. What's that mean for me?" Listen, in the realm of the spirit, it's not like it is here. We have physical reasons to have monogamy that makes sense in this world. But in the spirit world, it's only about love and the connections we have in love. And so as much as that might be hard for us to get wrapped around, it's kind of like, when you're a little kid and you're laying in bed and you're going, I believe in God. Well, I believe in God, but who created God? Who gave birth to God? Where did God come from? And then you're like in this loop that you can't get out of, and it's like blows your little baby mind. Well, and it's still blowing your adult mind. It's one of those things. There's so much that we cannot possibly imagine, and that the truth is not limited to what we can imagine or what we think we believe about it. But that we do know from this one physics perspective that the energy cannot die, that it only can be transformed. And so if you're having dreams about your husband multiple times a week, yes, that can be very common. Is that really your husband? Now, what I would say is if the dreams are happy, if they feel extremely real, if they are not negative, then yes. I call those visitations. I believe those are visitations from the soul of your husband, from the reality of him in his pure form. If the dreams that you're having are scary, upsetting, tense, nightmarish, then no, those are not visitations. Those are your brain working out the stress and anxiety and depression or sadness or grief around the death. That's a dream that comes from your brain. That's from your brain. Coming from the soul is the loving connection that you still have with him. So yes, and enjoy those dreams, and cherish them. Write them down so you can remember them. Now he over time may come to you less and less, or it may maintain itself. I don't know. It's different for everyone. I don't have as many dreams about my late husband as I used to. He used to visit me fairly often. Not so much anymore. Doesn't change the bond, but my life has moved forward. My life has grown around the loss. And I have a child. I've been in a new relationship for several years. And so many things have changed, but it never changes the love that I have or the bond that exists. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you, just the other day I was doing a meditation. And in that meditation, I was doing a meet your loved ones in spirit because I have so many people on the other side. And so I like to do these meditations where maybe I can envision meeting with them. And so I envisioned that he showed up and that we greeted one another in love. And I just thought, oh, well, after I came out of the meditation, I thought, it's my imagination and it's okay. It's nice to be able to imagine that. And so I come into my computer. I get on my computer, and as soon as I open up, it says the time is 9:19. Now I have to say that number 9 and 19 was specifically ours because we were married on 9/19/09, right? So what I want you to hear about that is that oftentimes spirit doesn't just come to us in our dreams. We can come to them in other ways through meditations, and that they communicate to us in little ways that are meaningful synchronistic events, such as what I just said, because that 9 and 19 is something that's always been a way of communicating to me that he's around, that he's saying hello, right? Even though I've moved on, even though I love again, even though my life is completely different than I ever imagined it would have been, had he lived, the bond is still there. So what I want you to hear is that if you're dating a widow or a widower and they still have these connections or these feelings, it doesn't mean that they don't love you, right? It doesn't mean that they don't love you. And that doesn't mean that they don't enjoy you. And it doesn't mean that they're not happy in their life with you either. Now, some people have a hard time moving forward. And that's another topic, right? And for those people that can't move forward, but yet they're still engaged with you, they need to do some work with themselves. And that's another reason why I do what I do. I see private clients. I see people that are widows that are moving forward, widows and widowers that are getting back into living and loving life again. And I help them with these particular issues. And I also help people that are dating widows or widowers and trying to navigate that rough road sometimes that it can be, and also the extremely rewarding road that it could be. So it's different for everyone. Okay, and the last one is just a real quickie. So this person writes, she says, my partner still celebrates his late, wait, can I start again? My partner still celebrates his late wife's birthday and buys gifts for her. Oh, God save me. That's what she says. But he can avoid me on our special days just because of arguments. And I'm drained and mentally and physically. I'm taking sleeping pills. Please help me. Okay. This sounds really hard and it sounds painful. And I'm just going to call this person Pam. So, Pam, this is really a struggle. And I want to share something with you that other viewers have realized is true for them when dating a widow is that, well, I'm just going to read you these other words. This other viewer wrote in and he said this about dating a widow. He says, I realize that I have to understand that the lost love is not someone I have to compete with. This is not a competition. I just have to understand that he will always be there because he was lost and he didn't leave. This is not a competition, Pam. Okay. Now, I hear you when you're saying that he's still celebrating this person that isn't there. And I hear your deep frustration over that. And so I think that there's something in here for both of you. And if I could have you both in the room, I would say to him one thing and I would say something different to you. But you're the one that wrote in. And so I can only address your issue. And if you keep in mind that this is not a competition, because this isn't somebody that's there. This is a love they have for someone that was lost, that did not leave. That love will always be there. And if that's something that is too painful for you to be able to accept, if it feels like it's a competition for you, that you have to be better somehow or more worthy somehow, or you have to be like her or different than her, or any of this, if you're in a state of comparison in your own mind about yourself and his late wife, then this, what I want to suggest is this might not be the healthiest of relationships for you to be in. Okay? Because it also sounds like on his side, he's not able to give you the love and reassurance that you need and meet you halfway. So it sounds like there's kind of two rams going at each other here. But there's also something about the other one that each of you really like, or you wouldn't be in a relationship, right? So it's not hopeless, but this is going to take some work and some adjustment for both of you, both of your perspectives and approaches to this relationship. And knowing that you're enough, that you are everything that the right person would want is something that you need to be well with and to take care of yourself around that. Okay. And, if you want to turn him on to my channel and have him, look at some of the videos about talking to the widows themselves, so he can start to see outside of his own box. Because sometimes widows are so wrapped up in their own pain and suffering. It's hard for them to imagine the needs of someone else. It just is. It's like that for some people. And it's not just because they're a widow. They're probably like that with everything. Right? And so when they got widowed, that was so tragic that it just exponentiated that personality trait. So it's hard for them to be able to put themselves in your shoes. And so sometimes it takes a lot of good communication to be very clear with them. I need this, I need that, this is hard for me, but it's difficult to do without blaming and creating a lot of what we call NET, as needless emotional turmoil. So without being able to have you both in a counseling session, I advise for you to, number one, know that you're worthy. Number two, take good care of yourself and give yourself more self-care. Fill yourself up on those anniversary dates. If you want to be in this relationship with this man, then step yourself out. Make yourself scarce. Go do something that you love to do on those holidays and let him have his grief over his wife. And when the day's over and he's done focused on his past, then you can come back the next day and be his goddess again the next day. These things are choices, they're options. And if these is not something that you can handle, you don't see it changing, you don't feel like it's something you guys can talk about and work out, then you have choices to make. Okay. Same thing I said to the other viewer that wrote in. Can you accept this? And where are you at on your scale of acceptance about the situation? How close are you to being done, and how close are you to accepting it completely? And kind of work that out in your own mind and your own heart. And you'll find an answer that is suitable to you, right? Because every situation is different. And without more information, I can't properly advise. All I can do is take this at face value. But to all of you dating a widow or a widower, know, and I'm going to repeat it again because it's such gold, this is not a competition between you and the dead guy. It's not a competition between you and the dead wife. Because they still exist. They will always love them. They will always be bonded to them. And they can also love you and also be bonded to you if they're open to love again. So I want to thank you for subscribing to this channel. And please put your comments below if you would like to give an opinion to Pam and tell her what you think of her situation and what you think of this advice. Please share your thoughts, because you never know when you have a bit of wisdom that's going to help someone else get over the hump and find the answer that they're looking for. So again, from Sevilla I Love, you can find me on my website at www.sevilla, SEVILLAI.love. SevillaI.love. That's my website. If you'd like to find me, I do coaching and psychotherapy for Alaska clients only, but coaching for anywhere in the English-speaking world because it's the only language I use. Have a great night.